those kids that are in need. I believe that we all could agree that the second proposition in each scenario is the right one, and it is not Common Core. Secretary Duncan has been sending out blasts just recently, telling all that agree with him to challenge those against Common Core. Secretary Duncan says it is just those Tea Party people against this and all of their conspiracy theories. Challenge those people to show you where the government has written any curriculum for this. Keep pressuring them on this point, because those people won't have an answer because we have not written any curriculum. He knows he has to say this because it is illegal under our Constitution for the federal government to write curriculum for the states. And this brings me to my final point. This is once again the administration lying to us in America. They lie outright and they lie by omission. Secretary Duncan has done both in one statement. Number one, it is not only the Tea Party, right-wingers against Common Core. It is Democrats, Republicans, teachers, unions, and principals against Common Core. Number two, anyone involved in education knows you simply cannot have tests without standards, and you can't teach standards without a curriculum. So in essence, the federal government is pushing forth their curriculum by having their hand-picked Obama supporters, special interest groups devise these Common Core standards and tests. This is the same administration that says, NSA director, we do not keep data on American citizens. Oops, made a mistake, we do. State Department, Hillary Clinton, I don't have real-time contact while the embassy was taking over. Oops, emails showed that she did and was in the loop the whole time. State Department, Egypt is on fire. John, how dare you even suggest John Kerry was on the boat? Oops, parents show pictures show John Kerry partying on the boat. Obamacare will not cost more money. It is not a tax. Oops, it's exceeding it, and it is a tax. Why would we as sane people go along with the government proposed Common Core program when we know who they really are? Why pass another legislation only to find out after what is really in it and the great cost it will be to our children's education? Bottom line, our children are more than a bubble dot on a page. Let us not sell out our children for money. What is best for kids? Not Common Core. And the teacher in me is going to leave you with some homework. Please find out the truth about Common Core and then press the legislators after you find that truth in the governor and let us opt out of Common Core. My email is lfrance@yahoo.com, and I have all facts to back this up. If you want to send me an email, I can send you everything that I do, that I referenced in here. Please do your homework for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. France. Ms. Jenny Qualia.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Qualia. I'm from Ocean Isle Beach, and I'm just a private citizen taxpayer with 2 grown children. I'm here to speak about my concerns about Common Core as well, but first, if I may make a small recommendation. I was wondering if there's a way you could put on your website an easier way to, or a way to sign up online to speak in public comments. I had to make a phone call and go through a number of departments to get to a woman who took our name. So that might be something nice to do to make it a little more transparent. Back to Common Core. Common Core, for those who may not be familiar, is an effort to establish national standards and tests to define what every child in public school will learn. It has been heavily incentivized, as Lisa said, by the Obama administration, and in my view, an unprecedented federal overreach into local school policy. Billions in federal funding was used to create incentives for states to adopt the standards, yet the effort has left state taxpayers to pick up the tab for implementation, some estimate conservatively at $16 billion. But recent moves in several states are giving me a glimmer of hope that there could be a way to keep education in the hands of the states and the local boards. A third of all states in our country have either rejected Common Core or are currently seeking legislative action to pause or back out of the implementation. Just to name a quick few, about 2 weeks ago, the Oklahoma Superintendent of Education announced they would be pulling out of Common Core testing because of many technical problems and higher than anticipated costs. Oklahoma's withdrawal followed Alabama. And both states still plan to follow the Common Core standards, but will be assessing how students perform on those standards with tests that they have chosen. Some states have gone a step further. Indiana has paused implementation of Common Core for the next year, allowing the state to assess the cost to taxpayers and to determine whether the standards are superior to Indiana's existing standards. And other states might reconsider their Common Core involvement, such as New York and Kentucky. They are experiencing implementation problems. And here in New York, or in North Carolina, we know that our State Board of Education has decided to review the standards over the next few months. And our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forest, worries that, quote, "In the rush to roll out Common Core, I am not convinced that proper due diligence has been conducted to properly budget for this monumental expenditure for our state." And many more states have had heated debates on the topic. At a minimum, all states, including North Carolina, would be wise to follow the lead of Indiana and pause implementation to determine costs and quality. I have no idea why the rush to implement a nationalized program that hasn't been means tested on our young, impressionable minds, and they are the future of our country. Rushing in a nationalized program with all the federal strings attached, in my view, is a recipe for disaster based on many examples that Lisa gave. I urge this board to urge our state legislators and our Department of Education and our governor to join our lieutenant governor and put the brakes on Common Core. I, too, would be happy to share the information I've been studying on this issue, but I urge you, if you haven't already, to please further study this issue and understand what's at stake. I'll leave you with a quote from Education Secretary Arne Duncan, who echoed the President's support of the Common Core standards, stating, quote, "We have 50 different standards, 50 different goalposts. We want to fundamentally reverse that. We want common, career-ready, internationally benchmarked standards." Well, we've heard that word fundamental before. Also, that word internationally is deeply disturbing to me. A global education initiative would completely lose the individual student's needs. There is a lot of opposition to Common Core by many parents, teachers, homeschoolers, legislators, and plain citizens like myself, who only want a wonderfully inspiring, challenging learning environment for our children, unfettered by government strings and political agendas. The classroom, in my view, is no place for political agendas, and just as I believe the doctor's office is no place for the IRS. In closing, remember the constitutional authority for education rests with states and localities and ultimately with parents, not the federal government. Thank you for your kind faces.
Thank you. Okay, next on our list is Reverend Jerry Jackson. Reverend? Doctor? I asked that question a few minutes ago, and that's what I got back, so I apologize, sir.
I want to thank the superintendent and the board for giving me this opportunity to address them and the community as I represent the NAACP. In the interest of time, I will read from a prepared text, so I won't ramble on. Our concerns are based on the responses received through the Public Information Access Law. By the way, I also want to thank Ms. Swensky. Is she here?
Not too.
Okay, for her assistance in this matter as well. Rather than approach the board mid-year about our concerns, we decided to wait until the close of the school year to seek clarification on these matters. We've broached some of these issues with Dr. Pruden and Mr. Peiser, and we have also shared our concerns with some board members as well. This represents our opportunity to go on record about our concerns. Number one, 15% of the students attending Brunswick County Public Schools are of African descent. However, in the 2012-2013 school year, blacks made up only 8% of the district's 801 certified teachers. Even more distressing is the fact that in a school district with 12,308 students, there are only 10 male teachers of African descent employed. If the district is earnest about recruiting black teachers, one of the first places to start is in their own backyard, local high school. The inclusion of young black males on the high school staff could serve to inspire young adolescents to aspire to become educators. The irony is that there are only 4 potential role models in the district's 4 high schools, and all 4 are located at North Brunswick High School. We realize recruiting more black teachers to the district is a daunting task. In fact, I attended a recruitment fair with Mr. Pacer in the spring. However, that should not excuse the district from investing the time and resources to increase the number of black teachers in the district. The first question we submit to the board is, what is the district's plan for the 2013-2014 school year to increase the number of teachers of African descent and remedy this unacceptable condition? 2, it was recently reported in the Star News that 5% of the district students attend Roger Bacon Charter School, whereas in neighboring New Hanover County, 2%, 521 students, attend 2 charter schools in the county, and in Pender County, less than 1% attend charter schools. Question, does the Brunswick County District numbers exceed the average for county districts in the state? 2, in addition, has the district looked at why parents are opting out of district schools and enrolling in charter schools? There seems to be an increase each year over the last 5 years of students going and transferring or moving to the charter school program. After examining the data, and we may be wrong, but we get the sense that the district is comfortable with doing the minimum when it comes to its course offerings and the utilization of data to ensure equity for all its students. For example, only 7.8% of the students in advanced placement classes are of African descent. There seems to be a steady decline in the number of black students enrolled in the early college. In 2010-11, 7.8% of the students in the early college were of African descent. In 2011-2012, 7.3% of the students were in the early college. And in 2012-2013, 6.9% of the students of African descent were in the early college. Accelerated courses in the sciences are not offered at any of the middle schools in this district. And only 6.2% of the black students and 4.6% of the Latino students are enrolled in the accelerated math program at the middle school. As for foreign languages, 3 of the 4 middle schools do not offer a foreign language. And where it is offered, it is basic. This is baffling because in most regions of the nation, children are exposed to foreign languages at the elementary level and some as early as kindergarten. Based on the numbers, it's clear that black students are underrepresented in the upper level classes where they are offered. And there's a sizable enrollment gap between black students and their white counterparts. The concept of universal pre-K emerged in the 1990s under the Goals 2000 initiative. The basic premise behind the universal pre-K was to give poor and underprivileged children a leg up by providing 4-year-olds a seamless path for entering the school ready to learn. For reasons unbeknownst to me, the district does not fund a pre-K program, which begs the question, why are the numbers for African American children in upper level classes so anemic? And also, are the black students encouraged to take rigorous courses? Or could the proliferation of students transfers to local charter schools be attributed to the district's curriculum offerings? As for data collection, the association is concerned about the following. 6 inquiries regarding the percentage of students in the following categories: all graduating students, black graduating students, and junior ROT students planning to attend 4-year, 2-year, university or college, or enlisted in the military over a 5-year period of time, were returned with the following answer: this information is not required to be maintained by the district. I always thought that data is intended to drive decisions, yet the failure on the part of the district to maintain this data suggests that we do not matter, and sends the message that we are not high on the district's agenda. If you do not maintain the data, how do you know if equity exists for all children across the district? The association is also concerned about the school discipline practices and policies that feed the school-to-prison pipeline. The American Civil Liberties Union explains the school-to-prison phenomenon as following. The schools-to-prison pipeline refers to the policies and practices that push our nation's school children, especially our most vulnerable, out of classrooms and into juvenile and criminal justice systems. This pipeline reflects the prioritization of incarceration over education, end quote. In March 2012, it seems that Arnie Duncan is very popular today. In March 2012, the Department of Education produced a study on school discipline that revealed, I quote, overall, African-American students were 3.5 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than their white peers. According to Michelle Alexander, the author of the book, The New Jim Crow, black boys are disproportionately singled out for discipline in school. Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan said, and I quote, education is the civil rights of our generation. The undeniable truth is that the everyday education experience for too many students of color violates the principle of equity at the heart of education promise. At their current levels of 20%, black students are overrepresented in special education in Brunswick County. In 2010-2011, 34% of all students who served short-time suspensions were black. The following year, 2011-2012, 29% of students of African descent were assigned to short-term suspensions. There were 4 long-term suspensions in the same year. However, according to the district, the reporting hub does not indicate race on their data. Once again suggesting that we do not matter. Last and final, in the fall, when the district contracted with KBR Building Group to do an assessment to determine if the district needs a career and technical education program, Mr. Hewitt forwarded a letter to the superintendent informing him that the branch would like to be included with other stakeholders and groups in developing the lists of needs around the study. When it all was said and done, we were not invited to participate during the early meetings. And in short, the branch felt slighted because we were not afforded the same treatment that other stakeholders received. We want to be taken seriously. In closing, it does matter. Our children are our greatest resource, and it's not just about routinely attending school and graduating. It boils down to making sure that all children have access and opportunity K through 12. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, is there a way to get a copy of that? Is there a way to get a copy of your speech you just made?
I guess so, yeah, I can give a copy. I can send it to the superintendent.
Now, I, for one, would like to have, because I couldn't keep up with all the
Okay.
data.
Well, how do I get it to you?
Sir?
How do I get it to you?
The superintendent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, presentations. Ms. Swinsky is not here. Is anybody doing that for her? Okay. Moving right along. Approval of the meeting agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second. Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes, June 4th, regular, June 18th, policy, and June 18th, finance and HR committee meetings. Do I have a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented
Mr. Thompson
for
made a
the 3
motion.
meetings.
Do we have a second? Second. Second by Ms. Cook. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, consent items.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the consent items for approval, mainly the policies for second reading.
Motion by Mr. Thorson. Do we have a second?
Well, just all of them had been discussed in committee meetings.
Correct.
I just assumed that all of them had.
Correct. Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question about the metal roof design. I just wondered why South Brunswick Middle School, why the metal came down so far, and if that's necessary, you know, around the
Around the soffit? Your
The
facial,
facial.
facial board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Mr.
never
Thompson,
seen
you
it.
would probably want to explain that better than anybody.
Well, I've never seen it done before, but that, and I did think it added to the appearance of the building, so I just thought we ought to look at that.
Okay.
I think in committee, we've made it clear that design needs to be a higher priority.
You come down and under.
Well, we haven't specifically said how it should be done, but we have emphasized the importance of design. Right, Mr. Miley?
May I comment?
Sure.
The soffit structure and finish on the middle schools, to remove it and to come up with a new architectural section would have been cost prohibitive. The long-term maintenance of the building is improved by covering those soffits. And, I think that we had a schematic that was presented at one point in time and was acceptable. And that's why we went forward with that design.
Well, sometimes, when you see something on a piece of paper and then you see when it's finished, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
And I just like for us to look at that more closely with this next school we're planning to do.
Okay, yeah, we can make sure that we'll get that detail blown up a little bit so we can consider that before we move forward.
Okay. Any more discussion on the consent? Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, action items. First, policies for second reading, 3460 graduation requirements and 4150 attendance areas. It's a pleasure of the board.
Is anyone going to present?
I really think it ought to be presented again before we make a decision on that.
Board members, in your booklet, tab number 4, you can find these two policy proposals. And on the first page of 3460, you'll see that beginning in 2014 and 15, all high school graduates will be required to complete successfully cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And turning the page, you will see small adjustments in the various courses of study leading to diplomas. For example, the Future Ready Corps, students participating in Career and College Promise program may earn high school credit for college courses, dual credit according to the Career and College Promise program.
Excuse me just a minute. Going back to under mathematics, the 5th line up, it's when it says exempt students who are required to pass either Algebra 1 or either Algebra 2 or Geometry, or 2 integrated math and 1 and 2. I've had some parents asking me what we're talking about math 1 and 2 when they would start to help their child pick out what their classes would be.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain what that is?
The traditional math pathway has been 9th grade Algebra 1, 10th grade Geometry, 11th grade Algebra 2, and for those who are pursuing advanced degrees, trigonometry or calculus in the 12th grade. The new North Carolina Standard Course of Study, rather than have all of those mathematical topics separated, Math 1, 2, and 3 becomes the new progression for grades 9, 10, and 11. And Math 1 includes some algebra and some geometry and some trig. And then Math 2 in the 10th grade is just a higher level. Math 3, it moves up, but instead of having everything divided and unrelated, the new strategy is to show how those mathematical topics are related. So it's just getting used to Math 1, 2, and 3 instead of Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. But students will, and some kids who are ready will take Algebra in the 8th grade. A few will take it in the 7th grade. Kids can still proceed at their pace, and the school will make the adjustment and offer the appropriate math when they are ready. But the majority of students would follow that 1, 2, and 3 progression and then take an advanced class in the senior year, as they have been, should they elect to do so.
And the rigor is justice.
The rigor is enhanced. The change is that instead of asking students to memorize formulas, we are now trying to get them to understand and transfer the formulas. So there's more application, more higher order thinking, and less just memorizing and regurgitating without necessarily understanding. So it's really an increase in rigor. It's what the business community has been asking for. They've been telling us that our graduates read well, write well, can do math functions, but they don't know what to do with the data. They don't have the higher order thinking skills. And so the new standard course of study is an attempt to address that.
Does this take, and more training for the teachers, retraining for teachers?
Teachers have been involved in training now for 3 summers. We've had 2 years of the new curriculum in K1 and 2, and we've had a year K-12. And I would say for the last 2 summers, and perhaps for the primary elementary teachers, even 3 summers of training now. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I don't know whether I can explain that to parents, but thank you for telling me.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
The other reason that there's the change that Ms. Babson's asking about, the math 1, 2, and 3, is that over the state, there has been Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, and then there's also been Math 1, 2, and 3. So when students transition from one school that's offering Math 1, 2, and 3, and another to a school that's offering Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, it's difficult to place the student on the different tracks. So that's why the state is asking that everybody move to Math 1, 2, and 3.
I think we'll probably have to make sure we explain that to parents when they're with the principal or whoever's doing the schedules.
And on the page 3 there, you'll see at the bottom, effective with the 10th grade class of 11 and 12, early college high school students alternatively may complete college-level English courses designated by the state board in lieu of English 3 and 4. And those are the types of technical corrections you'll see, 1 or 2 on each page.
Stop on go back to page 3 at the bottom. It mentions at the bottom of page 3 of 9 is what I'm looking for.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you pull that back up?
That's it right there. The red,
Let's see if that's the one. I'm not sure. It may be, but it mentions the integrated math again, and,
Yeah, right there, it says it.
yeah, I see that, but I thought it was on the next page too. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, on the bottom of page 4 of 9, it talks about 1 additional unit of math for which Algebra 2 or integrated math is
3.
Something. So you're still talking about the integrated math, but you're talking about different levels
That's
of
that
integrated math.
Yes, ma'am.
And the 3 would be the top level, is that?
It would be the typical junior level, and they could still take higher math classes as a senior after that 3rd year course. But you know, some students, Ms. Babson, some 9th and 10th grade students will be taking the 3rd level math in integrated 3.
Well, they've done that in other courses, I
Yeah.
guess, too.
It's really student by student, and of course, more kids will be on the standard track, but we have our advanced students.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
If I could, there's a number of places where U.S. history has been changed to be consistent recent legislation about teaching of American history,
Yes.
but that's not consistently applied through some of these, and I was just kind of wondering, is that just an editorial thing that needs to take place?
I think it's pretty consistent in the diplomas in the college-bound and career-bound track. Where you might see a deviation might be for
If you look on page 4 of 9.
4 of 9.
Career prep course of study, all the references there to U.S. history and not American history. Same is true on the next page. I don't know that it makes a lot of difference, just pointing out that there is an inconsistency that,
Where it's changed on page 2, but it
Right.
doesn't reflect it throughout. You got page 2.
Career prep refers to U.S. history and world history. And college university prep refers to American history 1 and 2.
except on page 5 of 9, and there the college university prep refers to it as U.S. history as well. It's just a little inconsistency, be quickly changed.
Where's the first page?
That was right.
That
Yeah.
says American and then the same line.
I
would like to ask a
AP US
question.
history. It doesn't even say AP American
Right.
history.
Are there books with this curriculum in it, or will it be on computer?
We'll have textbooks. Most school systems in North Carolina have withheld purchase of textbooks until we get into the new standard course of study. And so we're now in the process of purchasing textbooks. But Ms. Babson, in all honesty, there are more teacher-made materials now. They can get so much information from the internet, real-time information. You know, a textbook is printed at a point in time, and a history book can be outdated in a year's time, with world events being what they are. So I think you will find in the social studies, in the sciences, you will see textbooks, but also independently generated materials by the classroom teacher.
Dr. Pruden, can I answer Mr. Thompson's question, please? The sections 1 and 2 are the Future Ready Core graduation requirements that are for students entering 9th grade starting in the year 2009, 2010. If someone entered the 9th grade prior to that, their graduation requirements are number 3, 4, and 5. So they would have U.S. history as their graduation requirement, where the Future Ready Core is the American history.
So over time, the requirement will change for those as
Absolutely.
well?
That's right.
So we'll have this back next year to take it out?
Right.
Okay.
There's a grandfathering effect going on
Okay.
for when you entered the 9th grade. Thank you, Dr. Meadows, for pointing that out.
Well, it seems kind of strange if it's just a name change, right?
Actually, there is a change in requirement that the students will have to take 2 years, 2 credits of that American history. It's split into 2 parts. So
Oh,
it's actually
okay.
more American history than what they have had in the past.
So we're not changing graduation requirements for people in midstream, is what you're saying?
That's right.
Okay.
There's a contract when you enter the 9th grade, the graduation requirements in
So
place
we'll see
then.
this again to
Absolutely.
Yes.
apply those American history courses in the future.
Right. Excuse me, I need to ask another question about the history. I realize that history is changing rapidly at this time, but there are some parts of American history that are history. They're not going to change. So I could see, you know, reasons to have some books for that. I understand. The other part can be, you can look at the newspaper or get on the computer and find out and teach it.
Well, Ms. Babson, the state authorizes a list of approved textbooks that local school divisions may pick from. But school divisions don't just shop around and get one on their own. They've already been authorized by the state.
Just another quick point of clarification. funding for textbooks has been fairly much non-existent for the last several years, as I recall, at the state
From
level.
the state level.
Yeah. So we haven't been getting money to buy textbooks. Hopefully, we will see that improve.
Any more questions? Okay, do I have a motion for 3460?
So moved. On the motion 3460, graduation requirements.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Thorson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Cook. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4150, attendance areas.
Board members, you'll see at the bottom of page 1 of 5, in the underlined language there, before notice is given of assignment for the following school year, parents or guardians may request assignment to a school outside their regular attendance area. Such a request must be submitted in writing and returned to the school the child is presently attending by May 30th. Once the principal of the current and receiving schools review the request by either recommending or not recommending, the superintendent or designee shall consider and make a determination based upon the best interest of the child and other factors, including the orderly and efficient administration of the school. And on page 3 of 5, a section on child care exception is deleted. At the bottom of that page, it indicates the parent is responsible for transportation except for homeless student transfers, for which the system will provide transportation. And it strikes out language associated with the old school improvement transfers that no longer apply. Language is added, worth noting, a transfer is a privilege. Parents are expected to maintain a positive working relationship with the school. Principals may rescind the approval of any student who does not maintain satisfactory grades, conduct, school attendance, and punctuality.
And this is just for children whose parents ask that they go to a school out of district.
Asking special permission to go out of zone.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about the May 30th. That is prior to our school even being released. Have we had several requests to have these students attend out of zone attendance? How many have we had as of May 30th?
One that came to the board's attention. The others have been handled by principals. The board has had one hearing on appeal of a principal's decision.
When does the policy go out to the parents? When is this policy, should we agree with it to not go out to the parents?
It will be on our website and in all the school handbooks and all their websites before the beginning of school. It'll be updated.
But we are still getting requests, or we'll be getting a request up through probably August for out of the zone attendance areas.
It's possible we could. If someone moved into the community after the May 30th deadline, I'm sure the principals would take that into consideration. And we always do what's in the best interest of the child. That language is here. The superintendent or designee shall consider and make a determination based upon the best interest of the child. So,
The alternate will be an appeal up to the board level?
absolutely, could be appealed to
And
the
that
board.
board will be a board member of 2 or the entire panel, the entire board?
The first appeal was heard by 2 board members.
Can the parents request that the entire board here?
I guess they could.
Why was the childcare removed?
Virtually every, not 100%, but a very high percentage of the requests centered around that language until it just isn't necessary. That is the reason that most, so having it listed there almost guaranteed that the principal was obligated to approve it, but by removing that language, then it actually gives both the receiving and sending principal an opportunity to look at the situation and suggest alternatives and not just have to almost blanket approve.
But it does not eliminate it completely.
It does not eliminate it.
Because that is definitely a hardship for some parents who have a child closer to a daycare,
No question.
and
Yeah.
especially with this staggered time like we started.
So that language really, I mean, you could go up under the hardship clause right on the next paragraph, so,
The best interest of the child language trumps everything else.
correct.
That's the bottom line, the top line and the bottom line and everything in between.
Are we foreseeing the board having more appeals because of this?
I'm surprised at how few there have been.
But Dr. Pruden, it's only July. I don't think it's gonna actually sink in until probably August. You board members, you agree with me on that?
Mhm.
Once the parents get the letter as to what school their child's gonna be attending, then that's when we're gonna probably get, it'll be drawn to our attention as well as the principals and superintendent.
I believe parents are aware at this time what school their child will attend.
So has the letters been sent?
Yeah.
So there's been a letter sent to every child in this school district to their home?
Let me ask Ms. Davis, is it a distinct letter or was it included with the last report card?
That was a letter sent, and it was included in the report card.
Folded in with the report card, indicating the child's assignment for next year.
And those students who were already there were grandfathered in, if they were out of attendance something.
As well as any other student, a sibling that comes up. So you could have one in one in the fourth grade and one coming up in kindergarten that would go to the same school.
Yes, sir.
And then that kindergarten could move on up to the second grade and you could have another one come in for kindergarten.
Yeah.
True, but the principals felt like that would phase out over time.
It phase out.
Except for very, very large families.
I was thinking that, Mr. Thompson.
The optimum moves to southeastern North Carolina.
Let me ask, I got just this question, and I guess this may not be a fair question, maybe for the principals, but how rigid are they gonna be with following this when they consider it maybe not a hardship, and then it goes to the superintendent, who may consider it not a hardship, then it comes to the board, we consider it a hardship, which has happened in the past. But how rigid are these principals gonna be? Are they gonna have give and take any at all? I would hope.
Let's ask Ms. Owen, she's raising her hand, and the other ones out there, see just how they feel
Yeah,
about it.
Ms. Rusk and Ms. Owens.
Ms. Rusk, yeah.
Come to the microphone, please.
Come on, Ms. Rusk.
She said, I don't care. I'm gonna
And I
retire."
guess the question I would ask to, if they can answer it, is if your school's underpopulated, would you be willing to draw more closely to a hardship case than you would if you're overpopulated with students?
Well, we look at each case individually. Whenever I get a request for transfer, I call the other principal and we discuss, first of all, if the child is with them, if they've been at the other school. What we're doing now is keeping those children at the schools they have attended. If it's a brand-new child off the street that we've never seen before, we tend to want them to go to their own district or their own community school. But we do call the principals of the other school and have a conversation about what we need to do. Because sometimes it appears to be convenience. There's a lot of people that have to work out childcare, and there are ways to do that.
And I know that sometimes we have children, that the parents want to move them
you know, and so we will talk with each other, and if, I know at Belleville last year, their kindergarten was absolutely full. And so we would talk to those parents and try to explain to them that that's increasing that class size that is already at a high number, and that we do have room for them. So we do try to accept those, especially when we do have room for them at our schools, depending on the population of the grade level and how many are in each classroom. So we try to work with the parents first and talk through with the principals and the parents, and then usually we come to I mean, we don't have many that we can't satisfy. We have a few. But pretty much we try to work with the parent to make sure it's a good situation. And if it goes further, then we always are accepting of any of those children that need to come to our school. So, you know.
Board members, the situation is tighter at some of our schools than at others. We all know that Southport, some of the parents that live in the Southport zone have been alarmed at the number of students out of zone, and they felt their classes were overcrowded. So you get it from both sides. Union School is at capacity. Ms. Smith probably cannot be as free admitting out-of-zone students as another principal who has space for another 50 or 100 children in the building. They have to take that into account. Yet and still, we're going to try to do what's best for each child, given those factors to consider.
And we also consider if we have a child that was there the previous year and they didn't arrive at school until 9 o'clock every morning, that then, you know, it's not really, they need to be where they can get to school on time and be in school all day. And we do have some parents that will transfer them and they will bring them at 9 and pick them up at 2:30 or 2 o'clock every day. And so that child's missing 2 hours of their education. And yet we're still held accountable. And so we talk with the parents to make sure that that's part of, you know, their accountability for being at school. And that has become a problem in some areas with the transportation.
And we do keep up with that information. We have monthly attendance meetings with the social worker and look at our attendance, and if we have students that are missing more than a minimum amount of days, we'll find out what the problem is, bring the parent in. If it is a child that's out of district, we would suggest that they attend their school, their home school, because they can get bus service. So it's an individual thing. We take one at a time.
And we're there to serve the children, so we want what's best for them. And so we absolutely, the principals are talking to each other all the time about when there's a request for a transfer, is what we need to do to make sure that this child's safe and yet they have the opportunity to get their education.
I respect the fact that the two of you stood up front and explaining, but behind me, the child care, how would you go about the parent coming in and asking about the child care that is being stricken?
The biggest thing we have there is when they request transportation to these child care places. And that we worked on several years ago, and it's almost non-existent now, because that's the part of them transporting their own child, is because we had children that were riding buses that were full, that didn't live in our district. And so when we would have more children, it would have this huge domino effect. We had to take 3 kids off of this bus and move them to this bus, which then overloaded this bus. And so we were moving routes all the time to accommodate children who did not live in the district. But since we've done away with that part of the transportation, that has worked itself out pretty much. But if they can provide the transportation, if the daycare comes to the school to pick the children up, we don't have any problems with that. We allow them to come into the bus parking lot so that they can get in, pick the kids up, and get off campus quickly. So that really hadn't been a problem.
We've addressed this before, and Mr. Molly, I think I've talked to Mr. Molly years ago about a bus not being over capacity, going by a daycare, and they were able to drop those 4 or 5 kids off. Would we still do that if their bus was not over capacity?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't have that
They're
problem because my
doing it
buses
in
usually
one
sit at
area of
capacity.
mine.
So.
They are now?
Yeah, in one area of mine, they were doing that.
They were doing it at one
Southport,
of the
Southport Community Club or Southport
Right.
Kids Club or something.
Southport
Girls
bus.
Club.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
Boys and Girls Club. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, they were doing that at the church there.
I currently don't have any daycares, actually, daycare facilities in my school district, so I don't have buses that go by daycares.
Actually, the
There are
bus.
several that goes by other schools.
Yeah, at other places, but like I don't have any, so that's not the ones that were
Go
there.
ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just point out and remind the board that the findings in the facilities study, I guess the population projection updates indicate that some of our currently overcrowded schools will be less so in the next 10 years. But others, like at the north end where we're experiencing the greatest growth, we'll begin to see a lot more growth and potential crowding. So the problem is just going to shift from different parts of the county. Right now it's in the Union area and the Southport area, and those schools, I think my recollection of discussions is principals wanted to be able to keep those class sizes down as much as possible because they've got to teach these children, and the larger overcrowded classrooms make that more challenging. So I just remind you that it's a shifting problem. In a few years, it won't matter at Union. Union will be one of our smaller elementary schools, according to the demographers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We'll
I've
see.
heard that one before.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Very
for
much.
being here tonight and for sharing that.
Okay. Any more discussion on 4150? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy 4150 attendance areas as presented.
Have a motion by Mr. Thompson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Cook. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay. Next on our action items is the appointment to the Board of Trustees for Brunswick Community College. Do we have a motion? I think we've accepted or advertised that we had an opening. We've only received one. And I'll let Dr. Pruden present that.
We received a letter from Frederick Allen Williams to Mr. Miller and Board of Education members expressing interest in being reappointed to the Board of Trustees of the Community College.
He is actually the one that is filling Ms. Pat Purvis Brown's remainder of hers. So nobody else has showed an interest.
Mr. Chairman, since we went through the process and followed the proper protocol, I'm going to make a recommendation that we nominate Frederick Allen Williams to be the trustee's appointee.
Have a motion? Do we have? Okay, have a second. All in favor? Aye. All right, moving right along, discussion announcements by superintendent and board members. July committee meetings, July 23rd, 9 a.m. operations, 11 curriculum, 2 o'clock policy, 3 o'clock finance, and 4 o'clock HR with a closed session.
Mr. Chairman, board members have expressed interest in knowing when our teachers attend NCAT, North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching, and I'm pleased to let you know that Melissa Haugen attended on June 24th a class entitled U.S. Coast Guard Teamwork and Leadership from the Edge. That was June 24th to June 28th.
Okay. Anything else, Dr. Pruden?
No, sir.
Any other board member have any announcements?
I would suggest that any board member that has items that they would like to see addressed or discussed in operations, just let me know and we can include it in the agenda for operations. I know that there's always some sort of facility question that comes up here and there, but if you'll let me know, we'll plan a discussion and help us plan our agenda.
Okay. Anything else? All right, do we have a motion for closed session?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, closed session. Let's take about a 10-minute break. I second it.